it means there's 60% of voters in South Africa who have not voted for African National Congress, who voted for other political parties. Now, that is a problem. The issue of the NTR, the ANC has identified the state as a vehicle to advance the national democratic revolution. And when it identified it as such, in areas where in most cases the ANC is not totally in charge or is not in charge, the revolution gets suspended. Because the state, if it's in the hands of right-wingers like the DA in the Western Cape, we can't expect them to advance the national democratic revolution. And what puts us together with the Communist Party is us being identified as a leader to advance the national democratic revolution. That's why when we asked the Communist Party one question, what are you contesting for? Because the vehicle is here of advancing the NTR. Are you contesting as a socialist party for socialism, or are you contesting for the national democratic revolution? And we're still waiting for that answer. But if it's about the NTR, then the ANC has been identified by the Alliance as an organization that must advance the NTR. Have you achieved the cause? No, we're not yet at the National Democratic Society. We've not arrived in heaven. Now, the reason the revolution is still on, the reason we're still saying a luta continua, is because we believe that the revolution is on course. Until we arrive in heaven, what we call the National Democratic Society, we can't say that we've arrived. Now, the revolution can't be suspended yet. That's why we are mobilizing every day as the Youth League to fight for the hegemony of the ANC so that the revolution continues. And there is no revolution that has been achieved fully yet. But yes, there are elements of achieved. There are areas of social change that have committed, that have said we've achieved. We can't say the ANC in the past 31 years have not done anything. We will not be here today. We've built houses where there are no houses. We've built schools where there are no schools. We've built roads where there are no roads. We've opened access to education to youth that have not ordinary access to education. We've put policies in place like affirmative action, triple PE that is challenged by right-wingers even today as part of our project to advance the national democratic revolution. Is our society a non-racial society? Yes, it is a non-racial society. But the problem is that what we are faced with now, the economy is still racialized. That is the problem we're faced with. Now, that's what the problem is. We can't say that we are in a non-racial society when the economy is still racialized. Now, it means part of our projects of the revolution is to make sure that the economy reflects the demographics of the country. Now, it's a project we're in the Youth League. We're not retreating on it. We're ready to fight with it. And we want to come out of this Congress with that clear project that anyone who stands on the road to de-racialize the economy of this country is the enemy of the national democratic revolution. Now, that is the enemy that we must unite against. Not this side shows of people who are contesting, who don't know what they're contesting for, when they were supposed to be here to assist us to defend the movement against right-wingers who are well-organized, highly funded by international forces against the suspension of our revolution. On the issue of deployees, no, there's nothing that says in the constitution of the Youth League that when you are a deputy president or DSG or second DSG, you are guaranteed a job in parliament or anywhere else. No. There's no such. These people are elected in voluntary positions. If you are deployed, yes, that's great that you are deployed. But nothing is forcing you to be deployed in any position in parliament. Those who are deployed there, our deployees, we've said it throughout our term. We are going to protect our former leaders of the Youth League. Anyway, we've been consistent. If you have read the guidelines of the ANC Electoral Committee, it speaks also about the missing middle, speaking about that. The 40 years and below, 35 to 40 years, who are not highly protected, in most cases because they're not young, also they're not too old, they're not protected in anything. It's the Youth League that speaks about them. And that's why they're even in the guidelines of the ANC, including the 35 years and below. Now, I'm saying that we don't have that spin for former leaders of the Youth League. This is a preparatory school of the ANC. Now, all of us here are going to be graduates. None of us here, I'm sure Zoelo and Google don't believe this thing of graduation. But today, they believe it now. It takes long to believe this thing. It happens because the Youth League is an age organization. When you get to 35 years, you cease to be a member of the Youth League. But it prepares you to be a better leader of society and leader of the ANC. Registration process, I think I must admit, comrades, SG, that it's something we must fix. I think both us and the ANC, we have not mastered the registration process. And I've been making these examples that maybe it's because of resources, TG sometimes, because the travel distance, but also the technologies that are faster, more expensive. And as the TG have said, we're being defunded deliberately. Big businesses in South Africa are funding small political parties to weaken the ANC's influence, so the revolution is suspended. You will find a party that would one seat in parliament has got more funding than the African National Congress. Now it's a clear agenda that there's a project to remove and weaken the African National Congress. Now, our registration process, it gets delayed on those because they are manual processes. And also members of the media. I know some of you are still waiting for your tag, but Comrade Spoke is working on it and will resolve it. But those are issues that we'll work on and improve on, because we need to admit on those areas, because our conferences in most cases are not delayed by many things, are delayed by registration. Because you can start an elective conference without credentials, without registration, because those are an important part of the conference. Because the constitution tells you that 90% of delegates of the conference must be from branches. Then the 10% is NEC and provincial delegation. Now, you can imagine that if 90% of people are not registered, it means that there is no conference. Now, conference is totally dependent on registered delegates. Thanks.
Okay, so I did not want to grant you, but because it's our last one, especially if it's a follow-up on a question you'd asked previously, I'm just going to grant these last two hands amnesty. So it's going to be you, Lunga, and then you, sir. So, yeah.
Look, I'm going to be a bit mischievous.
It's good on assignment.
Choice in advance.
President, it is the ANC's idea that a political party which has more numbers than other political parties should lead municipality and should lead government. We know now that in KZN there's going to be a motion of no confidence against the president. Of course, the person who's leading in terms of votes in KZN is the Umkhonto Wesizwe party, a party that you said you would not want to work to.
Yes.
Work with, sorry. Would it be disingenuous to say the ANC must support the MK party in KZN to take over government? Because it is your stance that a leading political party in a province, in municipality, and in national, that should be the one that gets a chance to form a coalition. Thank you very much.
Okay, just to follow up on the NDR. One takes it that, you know, with April 27, 1994, and the extension of universal franchise to Africans who did not have real franchise, marks the pinnacle of the NDR. And from there, you transition with social class battles towards socialism. On that route, you have lost some votes. You are in a GNE. What's the way forward now? You are in deficit, in essence.
Thank you.
Those are last questions.
Yes.
Okay. No, thanks. On the issue of MK party, we've made our views clear that we will not support any political party that does not respect the constitution of this country and the values and the principles of this country. One is that the communist, the Umkhonto Wesizwe party, it's a political party formed out of people who were cleaned out of the renewal project of the ANC. Now, we can associate ourselves with such, especially now with even worse issues where they've taken poor kids to Russia to become human shield, to be killed on behalf of Russians. It's something that the ANC, we can't want power at all costs to a point where we are ready to associate ourselves with people that don't value and respect what South African stands for. Now, the nation building agenda that we have, it's got nothing to do with the Umkhonto Wesizwe because they don't even believe in the unity of the people of South Africa. They formed a political organization to divide people racially, to divide all the corrupt people who have collapsed all state-owned entities, all the wrongdoings in this country, all of them are in Umkhonto Wesizwe. Now, I can imagine the day where ANC vote in Umkhonto Wesizwe to further deepen corruption in KwaZulu-Natal. And our stance are very clear as the Youth League that we're not associating ourselves with such. Now, on the issue of the hegemony to advance our program moving forward, look, I think we must agree that we're a setback, and I think the ANC acknowledges it. We're a setback that has forced us to provide leadership. And in many areas, we're working with people who are not ideologically aligned with us. The Democratic Alliance and Front Plus are not ideologically aligned with us. But we have not suspended any of our social programs. They've tried to block the Bella Act. We're implementing it. We signed for it. They tried to block the land reform program. The president signed for it. They're trying to block now in courts everywhere else the NHI. The president were moving with it forward. Yes, we have pushed as the Youth League that if the DA it is not prepared to behave like a party in government led by the ANC, because the president of the country, the president of the ANC, they must move out of the journey. We've made that call before, because we can't have a DA operating like an opposition inside the GNE, pushing right-wing programs inside the GNE. Because here we've set values and principles on how we want to work. For example, the issue of the Minister of Communication. It's a serious security breach of this country has done, but it's also clear undermining of clear policy of progressive of terrible PE that benefits the former disadvantaged people of South Africa. Now, those are the challenges we're faced with. That's what happens when we are at 40%. When we're at 40%, we are forced to work with people that normally will not work with. And South Africans have put us in these positions because they were dissatisfied with us on how we're operating. Now, we have a responsibility as the Youth League and the ANC to go back and win the hearts of our people, so that never shall we be put in this position again where we're forced to kiss rats and cats everywhere in the interest of advancing the racial democratic revolution. Because the dangers of us not being in the state is that if we chose an option of opposition, it means that there will be a total suspension of the national democratic revolution, which is risky. Because as we have said, we have identified the state as a vehicle to advance the revolution. Now, I feel that in those areas, it is very important that we understand why we had to take a political role to make sure that we are a leader in this GNU when we are called upon to lead South Africans, and not neglect that responsibility. Because if you neglect it, you're going to have Afro Forum and Front Plus, all these right-wingers, DAs, in charge of the country. And I can guarantee you today, if the DA takes charge of this country and Afro Forum and Front Plus, I can tell you now that the revolution will be suspended and all the gains of freedom will be reversed.
Thank you so much, colleagues. With that, we are coming into an end of our press briefing. I think I will allow one-on-ones after this, but the press briefing stands closed. Thank you very much.
How's it? I'm good. How are you?
Jumelo, can you please?
No.